So if you do go to South Texas, you will probably see a lot of dogs. And if you're afraid of dogs, don't worry about it, because there are some tricks that can help you. First of all, most dogs aren't actually going to do anything dangerous or menacing, but they do like to bark. And Chihuahuas really like to chase you when you're riding a bike. I will admit that I have kicked a Chihuahua. Actually, most missionaries have while riding bikes, because you'll be riding along and they'll like try to nip at your heels, and like they'll actually like kind of try to bite you. Anyway, so Chihuahuas. You learn to love Chihuahuas in the McAllen mission. That was a little sarcasm, but but no. So there's a lot of dogs there. And this is something that I learned early on in my mission, which is very useful, actually. So it turns out, at least in South Texas, there is a magic way to get dogs to keep their distance from you. So if a dog is coming up and it's barking and acting menacing, and it probably won't actually ever try to bite you, but you probably already know that you should not turn and run. That's like the worst thing you can do if there's a dog there that's like menacing you. But what usually works is you push the magic button on the ground. So what that means is actually you go down and you point, like you act as if you're reaching for something on the ground. Like, for example, like you're picking up a rock. And so you act like you're reaching for a rock, and then you bring it up in your hand as if you've got a rock in your hand to throw. And usually the dog will get quite a ways away from you at that point. And as long as it thinks that you have a rock in your hand, it will stay a ways away from you. You don't actually have to have a rock. And you certainly don't need to throw the rock or the imaginary rock. But 95% of dogs will keep their distance if you do that. Yes, the other 5% usually only exist in people's yards, and you do want to be a little careful when you're going into yards. There was one point where we had an appointment with someone who I kind of already knew wasn't interested, but we went to the door anyway. So we get to the house, and I walk halfway to the door. I go through the gate, walk halfway to the door, and my companion stays outside of the gate. And as halfway to the door, I stop and I think, didn't they have dogs? And right then we hear this barking, and these two humongous dogs come out from like behind the house. And they're barking, and again, dogs generally aren't dangerous, but if you're in their property, then like at that point, dogs actually, you need to be a little careful, because dogs are very territorial, and a lot of people have dogs specifically to guard against people in their property. If the owner is there, then the dogs won't bite you. But if you're trespassing per se, or in this case, going to the door without people. Without the owners being there, then that can be a problem. So first piece of advice, if they've got dogs and the dogs are not particularly friendly, get like your keychain and hit your keys or something heavy on your keychain against their metal fence, because lots of people have metal fences. And that's kind of like knocking, and people will hear it inside and they'll come out. And that way you don't have to risk getting attacked by dogs or anything. Now, alternatively, if you do what I did and don't think about that and walk halfway across the yard, at that point, first and foremost, do not turn and run. I made the mistake of turning and running. So at that point, first of all, I looked at the dog, and of course I tried my push the magic button on the ground trick, which worked briefly, except again, I was in their territory, and so the dogs were much more aggressive than usual, so that actually made them mad. They did keep their distance, but they got a little angrier. And then I realized this was probably not a good situation, and I should have like backed up to the fence, but I didn't. I said, well, I can get to the fence first, which was true. I did make it to the fence before the dogs. But so I run to the fence. The fence is like this high, and I've got on a backpack that's probably loaded a little too heavy. And I push myself up on the fence. I'm going to swing my legs over, and somehow, before I even get to swing my legs at all, actually the dog didn't bite me. Sorry to ruin the suspense. Okay, but before I can actually get my legs over, I push up, and then it's like this. I'm like a seesaw. So my overweighted backpack pushed me over, and I'm pretty sure there was an angel behind the backpack pushing as well. Because I go, so like this is the fence, and here I am, and I go like this. And meanwhile, my companion is watching this, and he sees that the dog is here, and the dog is actually going like this. So my companion said that the dog actually, he saw it like get the fabric of my pants. I'm not sure if that's true, but I was very close to having a very painful incident with a dog. And so I highly recommend both using the keychain trick if there are dogs there, but also definitely do not turn your back on a dog that is menacing you. Yeah. But it was okay. I stood up, I was a little shaky, and then in my journal I made a diagram of the angel pushing me over the fence, because that's probably what happened, because it was just like, I go up and then instantly, like, my legs are in the air and my face is on the ground.